What is the weirdest thing you have done in public? This happened a while ago. I was probably in my early teens. I was at a library busy checking out different books, deciding which ones I wanted to check out when I started to feel a rumble in my stomach. I could feel something brewing, and before I had time to react, the chamber was loaded. It was at a point where any movement would resulted in an inhumane fart being released, so I stood completely still with a book in my hand, too scared to even turn the pages. I was hoping that it would settle, but alas, it got worse. Eventually, it came to the tipping point and farts started to release like an AK-47. They were loud, and as it was a library, there was dead silence. Immediately, everyone in the vicinity turned to look at me, and I didn't know what to do, so I just pretended like nothing was happening and proceeded to skim through the book while my ass released fart after fart. This lasted for like a minute or two, and from the side of my eye could see the librarian staring at me with a bemused look on her face. Once the farts were completed, I put the book down and started to walk out, only to have a fart release with every step. I left the library and didn't go back for about 2 months. I take it as a win though, because I honestly thought I was going to shit myself. Many years ago, I responded to a 911 call for a steam pipe rupture. We arrived and stabilized the 2 burn patients and got them in another bus to go to the hospital, and we stayed on scene. Con Ed finally arrived and shut off the steam, and we thought we were going home when the patrol supervisor came up and said, "You're covered in asbestos," so I ended up standing naked on 3rd Avenue while I was being scrubbed with a toilet brush. Can't say I miss those days. Having drunk too much the night before a flight home to the United Kingdom from Mexico, I found myself in a very sorry state on the coach ride to the airport. Knowing what was coming, I begged my partner to run to the driver to open the on-coach toilet, which was locked. He didn't even make it to the driver before I had to improvise some makeshift puke bowl. The only thing within my reach was the hood that was attached to the hoodie I was wearing at the time. So there I was holding an improvised puke bag that was slowly dripping and attached to my neck as I had to waddle down the coach and out onto the side of a main road to sort myself out. All while being judged by a bus full of elderly tourists. Not only that, but once at the airport, I left the check-in queue to use the bathroom so many times to puke that security stationed themselves at the toilets and stopped me to ask what I was doing so much in the toilets. Those same elderly tourists came to my rescue and explained how sick I was, but oh my, I was so ashamed of myself. When I was 16, we had an event at school where some classes would perform science-based shows to the whole school. My role was to ask for people to come and help with some magic tricks and try to make it as entertaining and comic as possible. I picked up a girl from the crowd and made some inoffensive jokes, but one of them was straight up flirting with her. I just found out after the show that a guy, flirted with the most lesbian girl in the whole school in front of everyone. In the end, I was a joke for a lot of people for a week or 2. When I was a kid, I won a contest with my local minor league baseball team where I got to come out to a game and at one point go up into the press box and announce over the PA the first batter of an inning. Super exciting. Well, the day of the game comes and I get sick. But this is my moment and I'm not going to let anything get in the way of it, so I suck it up and go to the game. Few hours in and I'm actually starting to feel a little better and am having fun. Then a woman from the team comes to escort me and my family to the press box. As we're walking up there, I start feeling queasy, but I tell myself it's too late to back out. I get up to the press box. They show me how to do it. I'm mere seconds from being live to the whole stadium, and I lose it. I projectile vomit all over the microphone, the press box, the poor POW announcer standing beside me. It was everywhere. They escorted me to a bathroom to clean myself up, and then we left. They never invited us back, and I never did get my moment. While checking out, I was sliding an item on the conveyor belt, and it made a sound. I didn't pay attention. The customer in front of me turned and stared at me. Then she asks if I just released the hounds. No idea what she was talking about, but since I was putting things on the conveyor belt, I told her it was probably just the sliding of the air freshener on the belt. Ironic item, but that was on the list. She then starts telling me about her husband's flatulence habits. My brother and I went to a Braves game back in 2003. We had been drinking a lot, both before and during the game, as it was hot. When we got up to use the bathroom and grab something to eat, I started feeling very unsteady. My brother was holding me up, but for some reason, I thought he was trying to help me pee, so I got upset and insisted that I could do it myself. I ended up peeing in the middle of the walkway about 10 feet from the bathroom entrance, right next to a crowded concession stand and a police officer. It felt great at the time, but then I realized I was being lifted off the ground by the officer, who was dragging me away. We ended up in a room at the stadium. I fell asleep on a bench, and my brother, worried about the situation, had a panic attack and started vomiting. I woke up about an hour later, and the game was still going on. The officer handed me my wallet and ID, asking if we had driven to the game. I told him we took the bus, which was true, and he decided to give us a break, telling us to go home and get our act together. So there we were, with vomit on his shorts and pee on mine, walking to the bus stop, still a bit drunk and laughing about what had happened. We must have smelled terrible, and I remember people being angry with us, probably because of the smell and the crowded buses. We eventually got home, changed, and showered. As the game was ending on TV, my brother's wife asked if we had gone to the game. We told her we decided to stay home and watch it on TV because it was so hot out. It was like it never happened, and we just laughed and ate frozen pizza. I had to take my son to a doctor's appointment at a local hospital during the middle of winter. The waiting area was quite warm, so I ended up holding his thick winter coat in my lap while we sat in the lobby. He was feeling a bit warm, so when they called him back for his appointment, he handed me his Nintendo Switch to hold as well. I sat there, balancing the bulky coat and the gaming device, while waiting for him to finish his procedure. After a few minutes, they called me back to join him. I got up, still holding the heavy coat and the Switch in my arms, and started to walk around the chair. I was focused on getting to him, so I didn't notice a small table, about 2 feet tall, right next to the chair. As I moved forward, my foot caught the edge of the table, and before I knew it, I was airborne. I flew about 6 feet across the room and landed face first on the floor with a loud thud. The coat went flying out of my arms, and everything inside the pocket scattered across the lobby. The Switch also went flying, and the controllers detached and skittered away in different directions. The noise and sudden commotion caused everyone in the lobby to stand up and gasp, clearly shocked by what they had just witnessed. But that wasn't even the worst part. As I lay there trying to process what had just happened, a frail, elderly woman who must have been at least 90 years old came rushing over from behind the receptionist's counter. Despite her age, she was surprisingly quick and determined to help. She bent down, helped me to my feet, and asked if I was okay with genuine concern in her voice. The sight of this elderly lady coming to my rescue was both touching and, in a way, the final touch on the whole embarrassing situation. It was like adding icing on the cake of my already mortifying experience. One day, after a long day at work, I decided to head to the gym to blow off some steam. I was in a bit of a rush, eager to get through my workout and head home for the evening. My mind was elsewhere as I walked into the locker room, focused on what exercises I was going to do and how quickly I could finish. Without giving it much thought, I pushed open the door and entered what I assumed was the men's locker room. As I walked in, I immediately noticed a young woman standing near the entrance. She was rummaging through her gym bag, seemingly preoccupied with her own routine. For a split second, I was confused. I couldn't understand why she was in the men's locker room, and the thought of it being the wrong room never crossed my mind. So, without hesitating, I gave her a puzzled look and told her she must be in the wrong locker room. I expected her to quickly realize her mistake and leave, but instead, she just stared back at me with a bewildered expression, saying nothing. Still convinced that she was the one in the wrong, I felt a bit annoyed by the situation. I was about to tell her again when I started to look around, hoping to find some sort of explanation for her presence. That's when it hit me this wasn't the men's locker room at all. The realization came slowly, but then it struck like a ton of bricks. I looked past her and saw that the room was filled with women, all of whom were now glaring at me, some with arms crossed, others just staring in disbelief. The worst part was that every single one of them was fully clothed, which somehow made the situation even more awkward because it was clear that I had just walked in totally oblivious, without any excuse of not realizing it sooner. There was an immediate, overwhelming wave of embarrassment that washed over me. I was frozen in place for what felt like an eternity, trying to figure out how I had managed to make such an unbelievable mistake. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel all eyes on me, judging and questioning how on earth I had managed to blunder so badly. The young woman I had initially spoken to was still staring at me, but now her expression had shifted from confusion to something that looked like a mix of amusement and pity. Realizing I needed to get out of there as quickly as possible, I mumbled a quick apology, my face flushed with embarrassment, and backed out of the locker room. I could still feel the piercing stares of the women behind me as I made my exit, my heart racing with mortification. The whole experience had me rattled, and it took a moment for me to gather myself before heading to the correct locker room. I stood in the hallway for a minute, trying to shake off the embarrassment, but it clung to me like a heavy weight. When I finally made it to the men's locker room, I was still flustered and distracted by what had just happened. My workout, which I had been so eager to start, was now something I just wanted to get through as quickly as possible. Every exercise felt awkward, like I was hyper-aware of everything around me, half expecting someone from the women's locker room to walk up and say something. It was hard to concentrate, and I kept replaying the moment in my head, cringing at my own stupidity. As I went through the motions of my workout, I noticed a few other gym-goers glancing at me, though whether they knew what had happened or if it was just my imagination, I couldn't tell. But in my mind, it felt like the whole gym knew about my embarrassing mishap, and I couldn't wait to finish my routine and get out of there. When I finally finished my workout, I rushed out of the gym, trying to avoid making eye contact with anyone. The drive home was a mix of relief and lingering embarrassment. I kept thinking about how I had confidently walked into the wrong locker room, how I had tried to correct someone who was actually in the right place, and how utterly ridiculous I must have looked when I realized my mistake. It was, without a doubt, the most awkward and uncomfortable workout of my life.